going to be facing our lions or challenges of the week. What did you face this week that was challenging? Facing the lions, facing the lions.
Well, good morning. It is Friday, finally Friday, and we're asking the question, what have you been challenged with this week, past or present? We hope you like our new Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast picture. And we're trying to challenge you to challenge yourself with being able to talk about difficult things. Our line is open at 1-888-721-9260. Our lines are open for you. Life can be very difficult, but the fact that you are here today, it helps you to understand that you have made it. You're no victim by any means. You are a survivor. Let's define what a victim is, because we use the word so loosely. We say a person that is harmed, injured, as a result of a crime or accident or other events of action. And being a victim, someone or something that has been hurt because of an action or illness. What though does classify one as a victim? Someone who has been robbed, someone who's been attacked or injured. And when we are attacked or injured, there has been so many people that have survived it. We've talked about parts of victimization, and we need to take a look back at that, because we sometimes use the word very loosely on being a victim. And we're hoping that as you have had things happen to you in your lifetime, we hope that you are a survivor. Get with us, get in touch with us here on Vibe Talk Facing the Lion podcast. Use your QR codes, 1-888-721-9260. So, people who play victims are people who manipulate others for attention or sympathy, or to avoid accountability. So let's revisit this. Are you the person, or do you know of someone that manipulates or tries to get attention or make someone feel sorry for them, or even avoid accountability? Let's dive into this without judgment. We want really to help you understand and contact and connect with your own emotion. Many of us have challenged ourselves through life courses as we are all people that have come from various backgrounds. On a daily basis, I speak to many people, especially for the Healing Center, and we'd love for you to support the Healing Center. Those are causes that I care about. We have the Healing Center for you, and we want to start making sure that the Healing Center reaches people everywhere. So let's talk about victimization, okay, because that word is so loosely used. When we think about the characteristics of what a victim is, or somebody who has victimization, there are real victims. People have been assaulted, people have been hurt. So we don't want to take this life empowering and impactful situation and turn it into a nothing. But we want to bring impact to these words. How many of you are feeling powerless? If you have been through anything this week, and we want you to call in, the number's there for you. Did you feel like you just could not get out of a situation? Or do you feel like it's over, you're throwing the towel in? What do you do with that? You challenge yourself. We all have had to challenge ourselves. We challenge ourselves every day is life situation to be able to challenge yourself, to be powerful and to be impactful. A victim can and will not be defeated. You can be defeated if you have a choice, or you can choose not to be defeated. You can accept what is happening, what has happened, but how you react and respond to it is also a choice. So we're going to talk about the challenges of and characteristics of victims and survivors. There are many victims and survivors. So we want to help you to appreciate that, if you will. So, how do you know? We think about emotional words. Guilty, battered. We think of violence, emotional abuse, economical hardships. Some people even feel like, what is life's purpose? We want you to understand that the Healing Center creates for you all kinds of help. If you haven't begun to set yourself in a way of being able to talk with someone, we all need to, and I for many years had to get professional help, not because of feeling insanity, but because of being at war with my own internal struggles. Now here, we are not a podcast that tells you what to do. We just help you to look at things. So when you think about characteristics, how many of you have felt guilty or responsible for what has happened to you. We talked about feeling powerless. It is a growing habit now that there are people that are suffering at the hands of caretakers, people that are parents. Just before coming on live for this podcast, here's another victim, an adult. And notice how I'm using the word victim. You say, well, why an adult? Because there are people in life that can prove powerful over others. But now we're going to take an inside look at ourselves. And that's another thing that I like about the Healing Center and the podcast. It's helped me to be able to look at reactions. Look at how reactions of yourself. How do you feel about yourself? Some people have very low self-esteem, while others have minimization of things that have happened to them that have been huge. And you say, my goodness, how did they survive that? We're going to talk about that. So I want you to look at the words battered, guilt, accountability, and powerless. We always think about these words. And for those of you who are victims of domestic violence, we really want you to understand it. How do we understand it? You may know of someone or something that looks like domestic violence. We think about emotional abuse, domestic violence. We think about physical abuse, sexual abuse. How does that look? We are a hotline for that. We will get you in touch with those who are in the medical field, because I am not a doctor nor a clinician. I am, however, a professional life coach counselor, passing my test with an 80%. Congratulations to me. So when you think about domestic violence, let's have a look at that. Because we live in a world where people feel guilty even for having that happen to them. And if you're listening today, we want to let you know there's nothing to feel guilty about. And if that's you, what I'd like to do is help you to be able to say that. And here's another note, is that domestic violence does not only happen with women. Men are including this as well. When we were doing advertisements for our 2025, a lot of our advertisements, I wanted it to include a variation of people like what you're seeing now. Because I gotta tell you, some of us believe that there's more women being abused, but you must know that men also are on the rise for abuse. So what I want that to look like is that it affects everybody. Men, women, children, and even the people you work around. So let's talk about it. Physical abuse affects so many, even your pets. I don't have a pet, but I always fear that if I got a puppy that I wouldn't be able to take care of it because I'm never home. And so I don't obligate myself to that, fearing that I'm not going to be home enough to give it attention because pets take time. But now the shelters are inundated with pets that have been abandoned, abused. Many have had to rehome their pets because of just moving. And by the way, don't think that just because you have a pet and you leave them home alone, that's wrong, or don't feel guilty about that, because we know about people who really truly are pet lovers, and those are the people that I appreciate so much because we know that you will take care of it. I've noticed, though, that there is a high call for, especially in my area here in the Antelope Valley in California. You look in our community news, and it talks about animals. They find animals abandoned. You know, people really live for this, and I have high regard for people who do this, and I want to be mindful of them. But physical abuse can involve your animals. I've seen numerous films where people are rehoming or abandoning pets, and the pets are scary, and they've been beaten, and right off that these people can notice it. These are experts that work with animals, and they're able to tell an abused animal. Now, how do we look at physical abuse? Physical abuse can mean anybody. You can go to work and your boss could be physically abused, or abuse somebody physically. And that also does not omit threatening. You don't have to hit somebody to physically abuse them. You can threaten them with a weapon. It's very important. We see that there also are mentions of holding, tying down, restraining. Just heard today a lady restrain a disabled adult in a dog cage. Guys, this is really happening. We hear of cases upon cases of abuse. And it also can mean entrapment. If you as a person, and we're going to get real raw with this, if you as a person are limiting someone from leaving their places that they live, places that they work, and you lock them or barricade them, that is a sign of abuse. How about bruises? You know, The other day I was out and about, and I was concerned about someone that had bruises all over them. And they were about 7 years old. And I proceeded to ask what happened. And before I could proceed to ask what happened, they began to tell the story. Now here's where it gets hard. I know when a scar is a scar. You know, my kids have fallen. My younger used to always fall on a skateboard. My other one always fell off of a skate. And the doctors, they know. And in fact, my younger one used to hurt himself so much on the skateboard. I used to be scared to take him into the hospital because I told the doctor, I don't want you to think that I'm abusing my child. And you know, the doctor stopped me and he says, no, we don't think that at all. We know what the scars look like. We know what the broken bones are from. And they could really tell. One time my younger son had injured himself playing something, I think it was football or something, and he had a bruise on his chest. And he had to have an x-ray. And so the doctor proceeded to tell me how they know when things are abusive or not. But going back to that young child that I was so concerned about, because they're not ordinary bruises. Bruises when you fall, when a kid falls, that's too many bruises. Way too many. When you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because when kids fall, and believe me, in my lifetime, I have not only had children and raised them, but I also have had or saw the bruises. And none of my kids' bruises look like that. So what do? You first ask what happened. Because if you see it and you don't say something, then you are just as at fault as their caregivers. You know, a lot of times physical abuse can happen so easily. And even, you know, I was talking to my young son, and he said, you know, Mom, you used to slap us, but my kids hated that. You know, and slapping and bruising is one thing. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not one of these parents that believe that you should endanger your child. But there are many children or parents that have slapped their children. We're getting raw and real. But when you're slapping them or spanking them and you leave bruises on them, that's abuse. Let's talk about it. And we know there's a lot of parents out there that don't believe in spanking your child. No judgment. And we're going to have a podcast about that. If you don't believe in spanking your child, what should you do? Let's get into sexual abuse. And this is a variation of looking at the challenges that we face being victims and survivors. We're going to talk about it. You know, sexual abuse, we've got a well-known case that's going on right now. And I don't need to name drop because you all know the case is very high profile and you know what it is. So, how about this one? attempting sexual activities with you when you are not fully conscious or afraid to say no. Calling you sexually degrading names. How about that one? Or coercing you to have sex without protection against pregnancy or sexually transmitted diseases. Forcing you to have sex or perform sexual acts against your will. Or physically hurting you during sex. There are many men and women, and I just don't like to say it's all the women, because I couldn't be the coach that I am. That's why you're going to see how it affects families, how it affects individuals. And anybody that's out there and afraid to talk about it, we ask that you find a way to get the help. No one feels comfortable with connecting with "it's happened to me." And when it does happen to someone, have you all noticed that as it happens to someone, somebody else gets the courage to be able to say, "It happened to me too"? And I mean really that it happened. Not someone that's just trying to join in, but really when you listen to their story. Our phone lines are open. And you know what's nice about our phone lines is that you don't have to say who you are. Let's talk about emotional and psychological abuse and how it may affect people. You know, we think about ones, and we're looking at the family dynamics, and I notice that my younger son, he always says, "Mom, you don't tell people what you do," but you know what? I'm open, I'm honest. And sometimes I can get so mad that I say things that I shouldn't say. And sometimes, you know what? It leaves impact. It leaves a negative impact. And this is a podcast about realism. Because what you see is what you get on Vibe Talk, Facing the Lion podcast and Healing Center. Parents, including myself, how we speak, how we interact, even with our young adult children, we can fit in this category of emotional or psychological abuse. How many of us have ever been so mad? My honorary son says, "I love it when you say that." He likes it when I say, "I'm so mad." Well, when you're angry, you're out of control. I've been there many times. In some of my earlier podcasts, you will hear me admit that I have been uncontrollably angry. So upset. Well, I want you to think about this. How many of you have said, "I cannot control my anger"? Because when you say that, when you notice that you can't control your anger, you are no longer a victim of yourself. You are no longer powerless because you recognize that you can't control your anger. And here's where the survival skill comes in when something makes you angry. We have breathing techniques. Oftentimes they don't work when you're really upset. I was upset about something yesterday and my heart started to palpitate. And I tried so hard to control my anger. I want you to know that I walk on the same grounds that you will walk on. I'm not above you and I'm not beneath you. So what do? I'm challenged with calm down. So I have to challenge myself every day when faced with something. Do I pass with flying colors every day? No. But I have to constantly challenge myself to do better the next time. Let's be honest with that. Without being so harsh on ourselves that we just totally give up. How about false accusations? When someone blames you for something. Let's look at that. How does that make you feel? Have you ever had a situation where someone blamed you for something? A lot of times I'll say something like, this is lost because you went into my room. Well, I have no proof. So I'm just assuming. Could we now say that we assume? Or ask a question instead of blaming? Or do we pass the blame to someone else? Because a lot of us do that. We're not part of the realism vocabulary. And I like to be raw and real, regardless of who you are or where you've been. The realism is that we sometimes will place the blame. We say, you did this, or I did this because you made me upset. When really, it should start with the words, I, me, myself. You see how that sounds? Because when we put ourselves in the way and say, I did this because I was angry. I did this because I was hurt. It changes the whole dynamic of our placing the blame on you, yourself, or others. Because if I started a sentence like, you made me do it, you're going to immediately turn off your listening. And you're going to feel, and I want you to fill in those blanks. How about intimidation? Humiliation. I've heard that word so much this week during this infamous trial. You know, people will try to make you look stupid in front of others, or feel stupid, or you feel powerful because you are displaying weapons. This is all under emotional and psychological abuse, because really when you do that, you want control of something. Instead of saying, I'm going to challenge myself to be better the next day. How many times have you, as a parent, as a person, man or woman, felt like you wanted to leave someone in a dangerous place or threatened to leave in a dangerous place. That's impact on anyone that has been done to psychologically. And do we fling these experiences around to make fun of them? And if they've happened to you, you are a survivor of these things. There are little children that have been left in dangerous places, abandoned by themselves. I know of a lot of situations like that. And I'll tell you, coming into the healing center, there's so many people that are affected, young and old. And let's not leave out our elderly. A young woman was looking for her mother, and she found her mother in a homeless tent, dead with someone else. My question is, if you are a surviving child of a parent if you are a surviving child of your parent, why is your mother abandoned? We don't know the circumstances, because there is no way I would let my mom be homeless or abandoned. If my mom doesn't call me in a few days, like last night, I may have just talked to my mom, but in my consciousness, I need to know that my mom is okay. What about you? Maybe you can't care for your aging parents, like give them round-the-clock clockwork, but it's important that you keep up with them, contact them, let them know that you love them, so that it doesn't end up like that. They did a welfare check on this mother, and that's what happened. May that not be the case with you. Broken promises. How many times have we made a broken promise purposely? Because even with that, a broken promise, there's a lot of times we make promises and we just cannot, for any reason, cannot keep it. But let it be one of good reasoning. Maybe something came up where it was unavoidable, but don't promise someone something, especially your kids. Don't do that. Or try not to, I should say. Because it leaves a mistrust. If you honestly can't do something, kids are resilient. Explain to them. Don't avoid it. Explain to them why it can't be done. With my kids, I would say, we're going to go somewhere. And if I didn't have the money at the time to get them something, I always made up for it at another time. But I didn't say when. I would say it's going to be done, but I can't give you a date. And that made them feel a little bit more secure, instead of me saying, it's going to happen today, and kids wait for today to come, and it doesn't happen. I never want to disappoint a kid by not explaining things. And you don't want to have them live in an environment of distrust because you said something and you didn't keep your promise and you didn't feel it was okay enough to explain to them. Isolation from social events. Sometimes we may be in situations, we've been challenged to hear situations where people want to isolate either their marriage mate, their partner, from the outside world. I remember how my ex-husband didn't like me to go out with my friends. And it wasn't just stay home. It was, why do you have to go with them? Wouldn't you rather be here with me? Although I made even time for that, it was as if he was isolating me. Now, truth be told, we do know that you are experiencing that as well. Even sometimes not allowing you to choose your people, the people you like to be around. Think about this too. Threatening people. How many times are you in relationships where he or she has threatened to do something if you leave them? Thinking about even children. Children, I can tell you endless stories, and you already know that Friday is our challenge time, even though we're challenging ourselves every time. Every day, I should say. But to actually use your children as a pawn to hurt the spouse. And let me be honest with you. I never forgot this story, and it is a true story about a couple that were going through a really nasty divorce. And they had a set of twin girls. The mom, however, went to the house for some reason, went to the dad's house, and there lay her dead teenage twin girls. Why? This is about getting control and not being a victim of your feelings. This is about you being able to survive the challenges. It was very apparent that the dad couldn't deal with the emotions of the divorce. So he took it out on his wife and killed their twins. That happened some years ago, but do you see the impact? I still think about that. The stories go on and on and on. I want you to really think about this. So where are we with this? If you look at it, we are fearful. We are trying to process what is happening, right? I want you to draw a description of something. Make it creative. We want to talk about the cycle of victim versus survivor. Make it look like that. You know, we get it in a phase in our life, and here are the phases. We're going to talk about them. The phase of tension, right? Draw what that looks like. And then we do the standover phase, where it's control, or somebody controlling us, where we feel fear. And then we have where there's a remorse phase. Think about the times when you were remorseful. You justified what you did, or someone in your life justified what they did, and you accepted that justification without realizing that they were indeed trying to control you. Think about that for a moment, minimizing what they did. You know, we call it, oh, he's making up, or oh, she's making up. Though you may be sorry for what you did, how many times has someone said to you, I'm sorry that I did this, but you just made me so angry? How about I apologize for my uncontrolled behavior, and I want to work on it and do better? How about learning the skills of that? And then there's guilt. How many times have you been plagued with guilt over something that wasn't in your control, but was in the control of the person that victimized you? Notice how I'm using that word. And then you have the phase where they make the promises. If you come home, I won't hit you. If you play nice, if you give me, see, because it looks a lot like manipulation. Instead of challenging themselves, we try to make them not be angry or not be abusive. We do that, and we start taking their load and placing it on us. If we do that, what can you and I expect for them to be accountable for? Let's stop making them unaccountable. Be accountable for your behavior. That includes myself. See, you are not helpless. There are so many programs. Nobody has to know that you're even in a program such as ours or anyone else's. You can become anonymous. We have Zoom. We have outreach program where you don't even have to give your name. But I want you to know the phase of your being able to say, I want to do something. We're going to call this the do something phase. I want to not feel helpless. I want to know when I'm being... I want to... I want to know how to help myself, how to be able to see this situation. That's why I'm asking that you draw what it looks like. What is your plan? We say pursuit, What is your plan of action, your pursuit? What do you want to do about it? Let's not forget the honeymoon phase. Why is it the honeymoon phase? Because the first few times that you're challenged with any type of injury, abuse, it looks like when you leave or want to leave, it looks like it couldn't happen because you're so in love. It didn't happen because how could that person do that? It won't happen because they've promised you they'll never do it again or they won't ever do it. We want you to not be in denial. That's when the difficulty starts. Your cycle of domestic violence. And then you get in a spot where it's explosion. And that's somewhere toward the end. What does that look like? So let's go over this in briefing. We've got the standover phase where it looks like someone's controlling you. It starts to look like fear. Or it's we did the honeymoon phase. Then we need an action plan that looks like, what do I need to do? How do I challenge myself to not feel helpless? We have threats. How do I keep from being manipulated by someone's threats? Then it's the remorse phase. Honey, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. But I was so angry, and I wasn't angry at you, and I was tired from work, and it was just aggravating, and so I just blew up. Right? How can you justify that? Or what can you do when it looks like it's out of control? We never want you to reach the explosion. We want you to recognize it for what it truthfully is. And that too can be very, very it can be very fearful. I always talk about the real four-letter words. There are a lot of them, but this is fear. We have so many things. I want to talk to you about the things that we do have. First, you know about the Healing Center. The Healing Center is a program that Trish and I, my co-host, and I have instituted. We started it during the COVID, and it started out as this podcast, and that was back in 2020. Now, 5 years later, we have a real building, a real center that you can come to if you need to make an appointment. We're going to leave you with some things that you need to know. They have adult protective services. They have identity theft and elder fraud or abuse. They have shelter for help in emergencies, and online safety tips in your local police, 911, and your avenues of domestic violence abuse. We really need you guys to think about your challenges. Today is a tough one for many of you. I realize that. And I want you to understand that you are not alone. Don't allow anyone to victimize you. And yes, if it's happened to you, you're still not a victim. You are a survivor. You are a survivor of what has happened to you. So we are looking at that. We're going to talk about survivor. Because you're all survivors. And we're going to be right back. We're going to be right back. And stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.
Facing the lion is always positive. And so I ask you today, as we are going to be facing our lions or challenges of the week, what did you face this week that was challenging? Change is hard for me because I'm not focused on me. So what do you need to change about that? You need to focus on yourself. How do we do that? We don't become blind to everything around us, but we have an incredible desire to help ourselves. You know how people say, may I help you? Ask yourself, may I help myself? Give yourself permission to help yourself. Because if you're always thinking about making the change, but never doing anything about it, you're never going to see that change.
We're back. And I want you to know that there's a very important number. Okay? And we always want to bring it to you. And that number is, and I always get it wrong. Okay? Hold on. It is 988. Easy enough. And of course, we are an outreach professional program, certifiably so. We are not doctors or clinicians. We will give you a resource for your town and community. 1-888-721-9260. Why? Because we don't want you to be victimized. So we're going to look at a survivor's mind. A survivor, by definition, is a person who remains alive after an event in which they could have died. And I want to take this a step further. You know, people have been emotionally abused, physically abused, sexually abused, psychological, as we just went over before the break, and still have died mentally. People develop all kinds of things while going through these series of challenges in their life they survive at. So, even your surviving is a lot. It is as if you were battling in a war and you're trying not to step on the mines in the minefield. You walk very carefully. You don't want to start a fight. You don't want to take out your battlefield to fight against the ones that you love. How do you do it? How do you do it? That's a question. You know, we think of people all over. We want you to know that if you haven't died from all the pain, trauma, assault, you have not died yet. That makes you a survivor in real terms. We want you to understand that a survivor is someone that has moved from and into something else. Not like they say you jumped from the pan, or you jumped from this and you got into something worse. You know, you jumped into the frying pan. No, not that. We want you to begin a movement of action. You know, that action phase where you need to do something, you need to pursue something else. Because some of us have gotten mighty used to challenging or not challenging ourselves and just become comfortable with the new, or the old, I should say, excuse me. We want you to be able to move toward what will be a healing process for you. Because the healing processes are the strength that you will need in order to survive what has impacted you. The Healing Center is all about that. Being the Healing Center provides you with the opportunity to face the challenges of a new movement, a new journey. And then when you survive that journey, you're ready to talk about it. Of course, we all like to talk about what we've seen, what we've been through. That's an important part of your healing process. To now figure out, what do I need to do? Your action phase. We don't take it lightly. When you are a survivor, you have overcome what could have broken you. And if it did break you, here's the point. You're alive. You know, a lot of people may have died trying to survive. And we call them survivors too. They are to be counted in. You've gotten through and you've endured. I want you to know that you made the choice to be healed. Your surviving is very important. Vibe Talk, Facing the Lion podcast and Healing Center have given you resources. We have attempted to motivate you. We have taught you to discover things about yourself. And we have even been raw and real with you because it's crucial for you to accept the responsibility and accountability of changing your situation, facing those lions. It's not enough to just sit and listen. But when this program ends, are you going to say, I'm going to take the first step? We've had people write in our podcast that have taken first steps to heal themselves. Having a positive attitude and working towards something better. You know, at the opening of one of our commercials that Trish puts together so nicely, it asks the question, how long will it take? Yes, that question of how long will it take to heal is only one that you can answer. For no time is like this time, the present moment, to begin to start your healing center. Being tough in that you say, no more of this. Will you accept the challenge to be a survivor and not a victim? We appreciate everything that you all have done. Trish and I are so happy to know when you have listened and you have said, you know what, I'm not going to allow this anymore. Because it doesn't matter what we say. You know what matters? We love to hear reports of what you've done. How have you challenged yourself? You know, we're not one of the podcasts that say, we're going to tell you grimy stuff, but we're going to get real and raw. We're not going to miss any turns. We're going to turn over the stones so that you can discover yourself. And we go very, very deep. We look forward to hearing from you all, and we want to say thank you. Now, in case you haven't heard, the difference of being a victim and a survivor, a survivor has empowerment. A survivor has begun the healing process. A survivor has a sense of peace. Do you want that? That sense of tranquility. So instead of saying you're a victim, you're the victim, you can now say you are a victim survivor. A victim survivor is anyone that has been able to get past all these abuses we've discussed here today. We want you to take it seriously. We want it to benefit you. If you could, we want you to reach out to us. We're here. You're never a bother for us. Our number is on all of our posts, so you can't. So, are you a victim or are you a survivor? That's the question. Trish, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Our podcast, because Trish is just coming in, and we thank you. I'm just going to fill you in on the podcast was on being a victim or challenges with being a victim or survivor. We talked a lot today about uh, domestic violence and the impact and what it means to be a survivor and a victim. So we can say that we are survivors, many of us. Even those who have died trying can be called survivors because they didn't give up. We want to thank you guys. We know that our podcast is all over the internet. Trisha's worked so hard in getting you guys to get on our YouTube page. We have so much going on, and personally, I would like to say thank you too for supporting us. Anytime you want to support us, we have now. We just went over our meeting on Wednesday. We talked about some things, so you see from us, and don't do it if you're not sure about it. The things we care about, we'd like for you, please, to donate. That's another reason why we have the QR codes now, because things are going on, and when we're asking for a donation, you're going to know exactly if it's us, okay? And if you're not sure, just call us. The 800 number is posted. Call us, but donate, please, to the things that Trish and I care about, and that's the Healing Center. We want to make this Healing Center one that you feel safe, one that is comfortable. We want you to be able to come, and anytime you want to reach out for a session, reach out, and you can do that. If you do a video session, that's a great way, but some people are more comfortable being able to just come in, or you can do it right from your homes. I want to tell you guys something. I have had more meetings in my pajamas by people doing Zoom calls with me. Now everybody knows my secret. So either way, we can meet at the office. Even if you're out of state, you can do a Zoom call with me. Graduations are starting. We want to make our list long for those of us who have loved ones, and we do. Trish, do you have anyone graduating?
Not yet.
Well, I would like to make an announcement. I have, first, I've graduated by my online class, 80%, and I am professionally a certified life coach counselor. Thank you. I still will not be giving out any kind of medicine. I had someone call me about medicine. We don't step in that area. That is not what we're here for. But if you need a doctor, we can certainly recommend you to medical professionals. Trish and I are not medical professionals. So happy graduation to me. Happy graduation to my grandson, Captain, for graduating kindergarten. That's coming up. And my niece, Athena, graduated or is graduating in about a week from high school. And my nephew, Jezreel, graduating from middle school, going into high school. If you've got a graduate, we'd love to hear about it. We're not partial to only our family. I love graduation time. It's such a beautiful time. Celebrate those. There are people, and I want to leave this impact with you. There are people right now, ladies and gentlemen, that were supposed to graduate this May or June, whatever the traditional calendar is, or whatever your school calendar is. They're not here. Please let's honor them and their parents. We're so happy. We know the challenges of losing your loved ones who were supposed to graduate. You can step up and you can walk for them, because that's exactly what I would do. So let's think about them, and let's celebrate moments with our loved ones. And don't forget, challenge yourself every day to celebrate you. I want to thank you guys for all that you have done. I want to thank you, Trish, for making it your business to get here. I know that times are hard. Trish, your brother's in the military, and you got a chance to talk to him. So, how did you feel about that?
I felt very excited, and it was very emotional for me because we haven't talked to him in like a year. We haven't seen his face in a year, so a year and a half actually. So it felt great to video call him and things like that. It made me happy today.
And where is he stationed at?
He's stationed in California. That's where he's stationed at.
Okay, so is he at the? Did you guys ever find out if he was at the in the desert where I am?
We haven't found that out yet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, celebrate those moments. And although you face challenges, be that of survival skills. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Change is hard for me because I'm not focused on me. So what do you need to change about that? You need to focus on yourself. I we do that? We don't become blind to everything around us, but we have an incredible desire to help ourselves. You know how people say, may I help you? Ask yourself, may I help myself? Give yourself permission to help yourself. Because if you're always thinking about making the change,